right now we're joined by Audacy NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Audacy original podcast, In the Huddle, with Jason Lockenfora and Carl Dukes covering the entire NFL. Baldy, how are you on this hump day?
I'm doing just fine, guys. Good to be with you. Thanks.
Well, we certainly are not as great as we were in Cowboy land after that game against Buffalo. What stood out to you when you went back and watched that tape?
Well, I mean, when you run for 266 yards and, 49 times and you can't stop the same tackle trap over and over, counter trap over and over again. I mean, they ran the same play left and right, and they just repeated it, and they couldn't stop it. And that's disturbing because, at a certain point you see a trend, you see what they're doing. Here comes Deion Dawkins, and you can't stop it. And they're basically forecasting and telling you we're going to come, and you can't stop it. That's disappointing. That's the thing that jumped out at me most.
Baldy, are the Cowboys, the way that they're currently constructed with the linebackers being they play so much dime,
yep,
and the way that Dan plays those guys in that, are they pretty much who they are, having to play run defense? I don't see any Leighton Vander Esch's or Sean Lee's come walking through that door to save this defense when it comes to the linebacker play. Is there something that you feel like that they could do differently? Just something schematically, something change that you would maybe see there or suggest that they could do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been saying it for weeks now that if you want to play Marquise Bell, at the dime linebacker position with Damone Clark, that's fine. But you get them out of it by running it like Buffalo did.
Right.
And so, I mean, you go to a 5-man defensive line. The Eagles did that last year when teams were running on them. You could put Micah as an off-the-ball inside linebacker and have a bigger guy there instead of Marquise Bell. And at least on first down, second down, would help that, Jonathan Hankins wasn't there. I'm not, saying it was Mauzy Smith's fault, from being in there. But, Hankins makes a difference in there. But, yeah, I mean, there's some things. You go to 5-man line, you put Micah off the ball inside. He certainly can handle that. He's got his instincts about him. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes he takes himself out of a play. But, I mean, you can get bigger inside, and that's the first thing. Or just put a bigger line up front and saying, we're not going to let you run on first down, and we're going to make you, we're going to stop it and make you throw it.
Baldy, I'm kind of going to the point that the Cowboys' offense is their best run defense. The fact that when Dallas is scoring 35, 40 points, nobody runs the ball on them.
Right.
Could it be, is it that simple of a fix? And what did you see from, it looked like to me a lot of clog and cover from the Bills of making Dak have to go through a lot of blue jerseys to get the ball out there.
Well, it didn't help that, they lost Zach, early in the game. And, he's just an elite player. There's going to be a drop-off. Buffalo is, no matter who they play, Miami, they're not getting the ball over their heads.
Right.
Their safeties are playing back. They might, invite you to run the ball more than you'd like to, more than a team that has thrown it as well as Dallas has. But that's basically what they're telling you. I mean, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, like whoever's back there, that's sort of their philosophy. You're not going to beat us over the top. CD's not going to run a double move and go deep, and Dalton Schultz or Jake Ferguson isn't going to, destroy us down the seams. We're going to take the middle away from you. And that's kind of what they do. And that's who they are. But, there's other ways to defeat them. I thought Rasul Douglas played real well. He's just a big corner.
Yeah.
Doesn't run particularly well, but, he can kind of drape you pretty good. And he did that in the game and kind of limited the number of places they went with the ball.
Well, with the Cowboys linebacker situation, we get asked a lot about, okay, why don't you put Micah back at off-ball linebacker? I think Brian and I have talked about it. That's not necessarily how we'd handle it because he's so darn effective at the line of scrimmage. What do you think overall about Micah moving more to linebacker?
Well, I mean, look, he's shown the versatility. He can go back and forth. Yeah. I mean, if Buffalo is going to run it on first down, why wouldn't you put Micah there if they're running the ball the way they did? They ran it 49 times. Josh Allen said, look, if this was a high school science experiment, I got credit for it. Yeah. I just didn't help out. It was a great line, and it really was. He threw the one touchdown, in an isolation there to the back. But for the most part, I mean, if they're going to run it, and they ran it at Micah, they ran counter right at him. The Eagles have had success doing that. It's one way to limit him is to, run the ball like they did. I mean, he was a non-factor in the game. And so if that's a team's approach and they're having success with it, then I think you should have the option to make that switch. Because, if they're running it like they did, it's not going to help you that Mike is so effective off the edge, rushing the passer, if there's no way to rush.
Baldy, going on to where, with Miami, a different set of challenges with them, really banged up in their offensive line, as we start to read the injury reports. I was watching them play last night a little bit against the Jets. It looked like they were terrified against the Jets that maybe the pass rush was going to be a problem. Ball getting out of Tua's hands really, really, really quick in this football game. Dallas has got to find a way, though, to put pressure. If Miami's going to play with a bunch of backup offensive linemen, that's got to be their best chance to win this football game, isn't it, as you look at it, though, and try and take advantage of that Dolphin offensive line? Well,
they lost Connor Williams, and, Connor had played great since he left Dallas. He started every game for him, and then he got hurt in the Tennessee game. He's out for the year. It's really too bad because he's been playing great football, and he's been the rock in the middle there. And so they moved Liam Eichenberg in the center from guard. So they kind of weakened two positions, but they got Teron Armstead back last week, and he's a difference maker. He took on Bryce Huff and, Johnson out there. Like, he handled them, especially, like, on the big throws down the field.
Sure.
So to Waddle. But that helps. But, really their best pass protection is Tua getting rid of the ball really quickly.
Right.
And I thought Mike McDaniel made a good decision last week to sit Tyreek Hill and to rest him up. I believe he will play. I know he didn't practice today, but I just knowing Tyreek, he wants 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
He's going to be healthier than he was at any point in that Tennessee game. And so I think, when you get both those guys out there, you got to respect it. But they're the number one rushing football team in the league, even with all the changes they've had in the offensive line. Raheem Mostert is a beast. And this Devon Achane is a really good football player. And they don't go away from the run. They get you with these motions and these shifts, and they kind of get you a little bit wonky in there, and they just keep coming at you. So they can beat you either way. I'm sure they looked at Dallas's tape last week against Buffalo and against Arizona, and I'm sure there's, a good feeling in that room that they can run the ball against Dallas, and that might be their first objective on Sunday is to shut that down.
To Brian's point about the Cowboys needing to score some points, which they failed to do against Buffalo, how good is that Miami defense?
Well, they've been playing shorthanded. They played without Xavier Howard last week. Javon Holland hasn't played in the last month. They lost Jalen Phillips. They lost Jerome Baker. They're pretty good backups, though. And last week, Jalen Ramsey, he went and shadowed Garrett Wilson, and, I saw him shut him down. Now, the offensive line of the Jets was a mess, so, there wasn't a lot of opportunities. But, I can see Jalen. I don't know what Xavier's, condition is. He got beat pretty good a couple times by Tennessee. But if Xavier plays, then they play left corner, right corner. But if Xavier's out, I can see them shadowing Jalen on CeeDee Lamb, which would be a pretty good, StubHub price of admission to go watch.
Baldy, what do you make of Dallas's inability, though, to play on the road right now? Is it? and I know it's it's probably a topic of conversations you have all the time on your TV work as well. But is it as simple as, could it be communication issues? That offense, when the offense at home, it looks like you hear the here we goes and everybody's on the same page. They get on the road, I'm watching Dak violently slam his foot in the ground trying to get the ball. And I'm watching Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith try and man a twist stunt, which I haven't seen at home. Could it be as simple as communication problems? Or some communication problems?
I don't doubt that that's an issue, but that's not an excuse, though.
No.
Everybody plays on the road.
No.
And everybody goes into hostile places, and it might be true, and I'm sure there are communication issues, but it can't happen though. Like, everybody has a silent count.
Sure.
Everybody has a way to handle those conditions. But if that is an issue, then it's something that they haven't fixed yet. Because I don't think it's just that simple, but I do think that's part of the problem. And I just know in my days, when I couldn't hear and I had to look at the ball and, keep an eyeball on the defensive lineman. Like, it wasn't as much fun, but you got used to it, and you could play the game just fine, and you couldn't hear the quarterback most days in New Orleans and some places, but you kind of knew that going in. You just didn't you just concentrated a little bit harder. But they've got to figure this out. Like, I think there's probably going to be as many Cowboy fans in that stadium as there are Dolphin fans.
Sure.
So it might actually feel like a home game in some ways. I just feel like Dallas is going to travel for this game. Not that Dolphin fans are bad. They're much better than they have been. They showed up on Monday night, did the game Monday night against Tennessee, and it was a good crowd, really good crowd. But I feel like you're going to see a lot of Cowboy fans in that stadium. Maybe that'll make them feel a little bit better.
Let's hope. Our Audacy NFL insider, Brian Baldinger, with us here in the GBag Nation. Cowboy fans did feel a little bit better after the Monday night game with Seattle beating Philly. What's the pulse of the Eagles right now? And is there anything to Jalen Hurts' comments about commitment issues within the locker room?
It's dangling out there for everybody to chew on. It's not something that I expected to hear from Jalen. Usually he just only points the finger at himself and nobody else. But when you say there's commitment issues, he's talking, to a number of other players, and I'm sure players are wondering if he's talking about me, which isn't good. They have problems. They're a very simple offense. They're very predictable. You saw McCaffrey the other night kind of anticipating what play it was, and there is a lot of truth to their formations. They're not a pre-snap motion team and all that kind of stuff. And if they can't get the deep ball, and basically Seattle said, we're going to play Quandre Diggs and Julian Love, we're going to play him 15 yards off the ball, and A.J. Brown's not beating us over the top, and they didn't. And they seem to get frustrated when they can't do that, and they don't have success doing it. And so there's a lot on Jalen right now, but defensively they're a mess. And they basically fired the defense coordinator. They didn't fire him, but whatever they did, they elevated another guy to the position. So they know when you give up 30 touchdown passes, second worst in the league. Like, there's definitely issues with personnel, but scheme as well. It didn't seem to help at all in that final 92-yard drive by Drew Lock in Seattle.
Baldy, and I know that you're right there in the backyard of the Eagles. Did you have wind that Matt Patricia was going to be elevated to this position?
No.
Were you hearing the whispers
Nobody
at all
did.
in the weight room with you or your guys or any of that stuff? Nobody.
No. I mean, I see the guys, but nobody. I think they knew on Wednesday. It wasn't anything that anybody was talking about. But it wasn't really leaked until Friday.
Right.
And so that's the first anybody really heard about it. And then if you do it that way, you're going to get exactly what Troy and Joe did on Monday night. You're going to get a lot of cameras on Sean Desai and a lot of cameras on Matt Patricia, and you're just going to invite a lot of speculation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Buffalo fired Ken Dorsey, and they elevated Joe Brady. Normally, that's kind of what you do when you're not happy. You look at Ron Rivera; he fired Jack Del Rio, and elevated different. I don't see the benefit of trying to placate a guy that isn't doing a very good job, and so it's a little bizarre to me, the whole thing.
How excited are you for Ravens and 49ers on Christmas Day?
Well, I just I got to tip my hat to the schedule makers, like how they were this fortuitous and prescient to know that the two best teams in the league would meet after all the gifts have been unwrapped and the church services have been attended, and you're sick of your relatives, that we get to watch this feast. I mean, it's unbelievable. As an analyst, honestly, this is a dream because we can go inside this game on so many different levels with the quarterback situation, the style of defenses, the style of offenses. Like, there's a real difference all the way through and how both teams have gotten to 11-3. And so we get to see all these differences play out. Like, I can't wait to watch that game Sunday night.
It's going to be an absolute blast. Do you have any plans for Christmas? I mean, is there any Baldy traditions that go down in your household?
Well, it's football season, and, football kind of falls on Sunday and Monday, Christmas this year. So there's, it's a game to do on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. But, I got a bunch of family that that are going to be in attendance on Christmas Day, even though there's a lot of football being played that day.
Sure.
But they're kind of used to that, being in this family.
Was there ever the Baldy outdoor family football game?
Oh, hell
Did we ever have that? back in the day?
We did that on Thanksgiving. We still do that.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. The guys that can actually still walk, without, maybe with a bad limp, that's still being
all-time
done.
quarterback situation kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we did all that. I lived in Minnesota for a long time, and we had our snowball games and all that. I mean, we sled rid off the roof one year after a bad snowstorm. So I mean, we were outdoors. I mean, it was just there was one TV in the basement. Dad was watching it.
Sure.
There was always a game on. But, we learned to play outdoors in whatever conditions there were.
Do you have a favorite Christmas movie?
There's a bunch of them. I can't really remember. Home Alone. I mean, they're all pretty good.
All classics.
I think everything with Farrell would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking Die Hard for you, Baldy. Kind of an action, blow them up. Guys, rough and tumble.
Bruce Willis fan.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis grew up right here in Vineland, New Jersey, just down the road.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of those for sure.
Baldy, you're the best, man. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. We look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Likewise, guys. I'll talk to you next week. Merry Christmas, everyone.